The air in the house felt different when Melissa returned. It wasn't just the faint lingering scent of lavender or the luxurious oils she had been so excited about from the spa she'd been raving about for weeks. No, there was something deeper, a change in her, something almost radiant. Her cheeks were flushed, her skin glowing with a health I hadn't seen in months. Her eyes sparkled with an energy that seemed foreign, as if some invisible spark had been ignited inside her. It was as though she'd been plugged into an outlet, recharged with something I couldn't quite name. But in that moment, I suspected I didn't want to know. I stood frozen in the hallway, watching her float past me with an ease I had long forgotten. Her humming, a light, almost carefree tune, made me narrow my eyes. She had the look of someone who was untouchable. "How was it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level casual. But I could feel the edge creeping into my tone as she moved toward the kitchen, her steps light, almost as if she were walking on air. "Oh, it was divine, Colton," she gushed, her voice lilting with a sweetness I didn't recognize. She tossed her purse onto the counter with a practiced flick of her wrist. "Absolutely divine. They have this facial massage that, swear to God, took 10 years off my face. You should try it sometime." 10 years off her face, I repeated to myself. But I wasn't sure if she meant that or if, somehow, she'd erased 10 years of guilt in the process. For weeks, I'd been battling a gnawing suspicion, a cold knot of dread that had started small but now twisted and turned like a goring monster deep in my gut. The late nights at the office. The whispered phone calls. The way she flinched when I touched her. The signs were impossible to ignore. So I had done what I thought was the only thing left to do. I hired a private investigator. His report was a punch to the gut. Photos, dates, times, all meticulously laid out, like a gruesome scrapbook of betrayal. The man wasn't someone I knew. Some younger guy from the gym. Probably the type Melissa had thought would make her feel young again, like she could relive the carefree days of her past. The days following the delivery of that report, I carefully curated my response. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to beg. I didn't want to look desperate. What I wanted, what I needed, was for her to feel the exact, measured sting of betrayal that had been festering in my chest. "I'm glad you had fun," I said, forcing a smile. It was a smile that felt more like a grimace, but I kept it in place as I walked toward her. "I actually made us dinner." Her eyes widened, a hint of surprise flashing in them. I wasn't the one who cooked. Usually it was takeout or she did something simple. "Oh, that's sweet," she said, her voice dripping with a thin layer of insincerity. "What did you make?" I gestured toward the dining room. The table was set with our best china and silver, the soft glow of candles flickering across the polished surface. I'd gone all out, her favorite flowers in the center, the fine linen, everything arranged to perfection. She gasped when she saw it, her eyes widening in surprise. "Colton, this is beautiful," she said, the tone in her voice almost apologetic. For a brief, fleeting moment, I thought she might actually feel something. I almost believed it. Almost. "Come, sit," I said, my voice clipped as I pulled out her chair for her. She moved toward it cautiously, still eyeing the room with that strange mixture of awe and hesitation. She seemed on edge now, as if sensing the shift in the air. I'd prepared a special meal, after all. The only dish on the table was covered with a silver cloche, resting in the center. "I made something special just for you," I said, keeping my tone tight, each word deliberate, measured. With a flourish, I lifted the cloche. Underneath, it wasn't a gourmet meal. It wasn't food at all. Instead, it was the investigator's report, spread out on the platter like a grotesque collage of her infidelity. The photos were placed deliberately, strategically, on top, showing her in various stages of embrace with the younger man, each image more damning than the last. Her face drained of color. She stared at the report, her breath coming in shallow, panicked gasps. Her manicured hand flew to her mouth as if to stifle the cry that was building in her chest. What is this?" she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's a summary of your spa day, Melissa," I said, my voice calm, even, but there was an undercurrent of steel running through every word. Or should I say your gym day? You know, the one where you worked out so intensely with your personal trainer. Her knees buckled. It was like someone had cut the strings holding her up, and she crumpled to the floor, her legs giving out beneath her. She looked up at me, her eyes wide, filled with terror. "Colton, please," she pleaded, her voice small, desperate. "It's not what it looks like. You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I replied, my tone cold, the ice in my words sharper than anything I'd said before. "I understand that you've been lying to me for months, that you've been sleeping with another man while I've been working my ass off to provide for you. I understand that you're a complete fraud." Her body trembled as tears streamed down her face, streaking black mascara down her cheeks. She was a wreck, a pathetic, broken thing. For a split second, I felt a pang of pity, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by a burning, righteous fury. "I'm so sorry, Colton," she sobbed, crawling toward me, her hands shaking. "I don't know what I was thinking. Please forgive me." I stood tall, towering over her as she wept on the floor. I had rehearsed this moment 100 times in my mind, and now that it was here, I felt oddly detached. It was like watching someone else go through this, as if I were observing a play rather than living it. "Forgive you," I said, my voice dripping with disdain. "You think an apology will fix this? You think you can just say sorry and everything will go back to normal? This isn't some TV show, Melissa. This is real life. You've destroyed everything we had." I turned, walking to the living room where I had already placed a file on the coffee table. I picked it up, my grip steady. "I've already spoken to my lawyer," I told her, my voice unwavering. "I filed for divorce. You'll be served tomorrow. I want you out of this house by the end of the week. I've already packed some of your things." Her sobs turned into full-blown wails, her body shaking uncontrollably. She looked up at me, eyes swollen and red. "But where will I go?" she whimpered. "That's not my problem anymore," I said, my back still to her. "You should have thought about that before you betrayed me." I didn't look back as I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a drink, and took a long sip of whiskey. The burn of the alcohol was the only thing that seemed to ground me as I stood there, staring blankly. Through the archway, I could see her still collapsed on the floor by the dining table, her sobs echoing off the walls, filling the house with their haunting rhythm. I didn't feel anything anymore, not the rage, not the pain. It was gone, replaced by a strange numbness, a hollow emptiness. It was a victory, but it felt empty. I took another long sip of whiskey, turned, and headed toward the bedroom. I didn't dare look at her again. Her sobs followed me, louder now, but I didn't hear them. I closed the door behind me and shut out the sound of our marriage crumbling.